Now to the trial and the murder of Tupac Shakur. A jury has been selected to decide whether Dwayne Davis is guilty of orchestrating the rap legend's killing 3 decades ago.
For 30 years, Tupac Shakur's execution has raised the same painful question. Who was responsible? The case has produced theories, accusations, and endless speculation. But the mystery has never fully disappeared. Suge Knight, who was with Tupac on the night he was shot in Las Vegas, has remained an important figure connected to the events. But is that really the name behind the mystery? Could Suge Knight's words finally change how people understand the case? Refusal to cooperate in Tupac Shakur execution trial. Marion Suge Knight has remained a major figure in the world of hip-hop for more than 3 decades. He is also the only living eyewitness to the drive-by shooting that executed legendary rapper Tupac Shakur in 1996. Nearly 30 years later, the case continues to draw attention as prosecutors prepare to try the only person ever charged in connection with Shakur's killing. Knight, who is currently serving a prison sentence in California, has made it clear that he does not want to cooperate with law enforcement in the case. As prosecutors work to convict former Crips gang leader Dwayne Davis, Knight has continued to distance himself from the upcoming trial. Knight recently spoke with ABC News from prison and made his position clear. He said that the trial has nothing to do with him and warned that forcing him to appear could create problems for whoever brings him into the case. His position remains the same. He does not want to be involved. The 61-year-old Knight is currently serving an unrelated 28-year sentence in California. His sentence comes from a voluntary manslaughter conviction connected to a fatal hit-and-run in Los Angeles in 2015. At the same time, Knight is fully aware that jury selection for Davis's trial is scheduled to begin Monday in Las Vegas. The timing is especially significant because the trial comes nearly 30 years after Tupac Shakur was shot while sitting in the passenger seat of a BMW driven by Knight. Davis is accused of execution in connection with the shooting. Prosecutors allege that he gave his group the order to open fire on Shakur as an act of retaliation following a fight. The case has remained one of the most closely watched mysteries connected to the history of hip-hop. Knight, however, has repeatedly refused to become part of the investigation. In the months after Shakur died from his injuries, Knight told ABC News that he would not cooperate with law enforcement. His position at the time was that solving homicides was not his responsibility. Years later, that position has not changed. Now held at a state penitentiary near San Diego, Knight continues to insist that he should be left out of the case. He explained that if Davis's lawyers force him to appear in court, it could hurt Davis's defense. At the same time, Knight believes that if prosecutors bring him into court against his wishes, it could also create problems for the prosecution. For Knight, the message is simple. He wants no part in the trial. His connection to the case goes back to the night of September 7, 1996. That night, Knight and Shakur were in Las Vegas to attend the highly anticipated boxing match between Mike Tyson and Bruce Seldon at the MGM Grand. The event attracted a large crowd and brought together celebrities, members of gangs and their entourages, especially people connected to Southern California. Knight and Shakur were among those who had traveled to Las Vegas for the fight. Davis was also in Las Vegas that night, according to prosecutors. Prosecutors allege that he was traveling with his nephew and several other people. What happened after the boxing match became a major part of the case surrounding Shakur's death. When the fight inside the ring ended, another confrontation took place in the casino lobby. Shakur and Knight encountered Orlando "Baby" Lane Anderson, who was Davis's nephew. According to the information presented by prosecutors, Shakur and Knight had been told that Anderson was allegedly involved in an earlier attempt to steal a Death Row Records pendant. That incident had happened months before and was viewed as a serious offense within the hip-hop world. The encounter with Anderson became an important moment in the events that followed. The tension surrounding the earlier incident, the confrontation in the casino lobby, and the later shooting all became connected to the investigation into Shakur's death. Knight was there that night. He was driving the BMW in which Shakur was sitting when the shooting happened. Because of this, Knight remains the only living eyewitness to the drive-by assassination of Tupac Shakur. That position gives Knight a unique connection to one of the most important unsolved killings in hip-hop history. Yet despite being present during the shooting, and despite the renewed legal attention surrounding the case, he continues to reject the idea of cooperating with prosecutors or law enforcement. His refusal has remained consistent from the period immediately following Shakur's death to the present day. Knight has previously explained that he would not assist investigators with solving the homicide, and decades later, he continues to maintain the same position from prison. The upcoming trial centers on Davis, the former Crips gang leader who prosecutors accuse of being involved in the shooting. Davis is the only person who has ever been charged in connection with the 1996 killing of Tupac Shakur. The allegations against Davis focus on the events surrounding the night in Las Vegas. Prosecutors say that after the confrontation involving Anderson, Davis allegedly gave his crew the order to open fire on Shakur. They say the shooting was carried out in retaliation for the earlier fight. Knight does not want to take a role in proving or disproving those allegations. Instead, he has repeatedly asked to be left out of the proceedings. His situation is also complicated by the fact that he is already serving a lengthy prison sentence for an unrelated case. Knight is serving 28 years in California for voluntary manslaughter resulting from a fatal hit-and-run in Los Angeles in 2015. Despite his imprisonment, Knight remains aware of the developments surrounding Davis's case. He knows that jury selection is beginning in Las Vegas and understands that his own presence could become a major issue if either side decides to bring him into court. Knight has warned that forcing him to appear could have consequences for the side that calls him. If Davis's lawyers bring him before the jury, Knight believes it could damage Davis's position. If prosecutors bring him there, Knight believes it could also create difficulties for them. His message has therefore remained firm. He does not want to be involved. The case brings attention back to the events of September 7, 1996, when Shakur and Knight were in Las Vegas for the Tyson-Seldon boxing match. What began as a major night in the city ended with a deadly shooting that changed hip-hop history. The earlier confrontation involving Orlando "Baby" Lane Anderson is also central to the events described by prosecutors. Anderson was Davis's nephew, and Shakur and Knight encountered him in the casino lobby after the boxing match. The reason for that encounter was connected to an earlier allegation involving a Death Row Records pendant. Shakur and Knight had been told that Anderson was allegedly involved in an attempt to steal the pendant months earlier. Within the world of hip-hop at the time, the incident was considered a major offense. That confrontation was followed by the drive-by shooting that left Shakur critically injured. Knight was behind the wheel of the BMW when the shooting occurred, making him a direct eyewitness to what happened. Almost 3 decades later, the legal case surrounding the killing has reached a new stage. Davis is now facing trial, while Knight remains in prison on an unrelated conviction and continues to refuse cooperation. For Knight, his position has not changed. He does not want to testify, assist prosecutors, or become involved in Davis's defense. He has made it clear that he believes his involvement could create problems for either side. The Las Vegas shooting that changed everything. Knight led Death Row at the time, and he and Shakur had confronted Anderson before the shooting. The confrontation ended with Anderson being jumped and beaten. The incident was captured on Hotel's security cameras, leaving behind recorded footage of what had happened before the events in Las Vegas took an even more serious turn. After the confrontation was over, detectives have said that Davis and his companions went looking for Shakur. Authorities have alleged that they were seeking revenge for what had happened to Anderson. Their movements eventually brought them to a Las Vegas night spot that was being run by Knight at the time. According to authorities, Davis and the people with him waited at the night spot, expecting Knight and Shakur to appear. However, Knight and Shakur did not show up. After waiting and not finding them there, Davis and his companions eventually left the location. Soon after they left, the car in which Davis was allegedly riding ended up alongside the red BMW that Knight was driving. This account is based on Davis's past accounts and the case presented by prosecutors. The two vehicles were together on the Las Vegas streets, and Shakur was inside Knight's car. Shakur was hanging out of the car's sunroof as they traveled. At the same time, screaming fans were following them. The scene was highly visible, with people trailing the vehicle as Shakur and Knight moved through the city. Then, at a stoplight at the intersection of East Flamingo Road and Koval Lane, the situation suddenly became a shooting. Shakur and Knight were both shot. Knight was injured during the hail of bullets, while Shakur suffered much more serious injuries. Shakur was rushed to the hospital in grave condition. His condition was critical, and despite being taken for medical treatment, he did not survive. 6 days later, Shakur died. The shooting became one of the most closely watched unsolved cases connected to hip-hop. Years passed, and then more years followed, but no charges were filed in Shakur's death for a long time. As the years turned into decades, many people began to believe that the case might never be solved. The lack of charges kept questions surrounding the shooting alive. With no one being prosecuted for Shakur's death for so many years, the case remained unresolved in the eyes of the public. The long wait made it seem possible that there might never be an arrest connected to the killing. Knight has also continued to challenge accounts of what happened, especially when it comes to people who were not present during the shooting. In an interview with ABC News the previous week, Knight addressed the issue of people giving accounts of events they did not personally witness. His position was that some people were telling the story even though they were not there and were not inside the car. That point remains important to the way Knight views the events surrounding Shakur's death. For years, the case remained without charges. Then everything changed in September 2023, when authorities arrested Davis. Davis had described himself as a longtime leader of the Southside Crips from the Los Angeles community of Compton. By the time authorities arrested him, he had retired to the suburbs of Las Vegas. His arrest brought a major development to a case that had remained without charges for decades. After so many years of uncertainty surrounding Shakur's death, authorities finally took action against someone they connected to the shooting. Davis was charged with execution with the use of a deadly weapon with the intent to promote, further, or assist a criminal gang. Following the charge, he remained in custody. The arrest marked a major turning point after decades in which Shakur's death had remained unsolved. For a case that had stayed open in the public eye for so long without an arrest, the decision to charge Davis drew renewed attention to the events surrounding the shooting. The events leading up to the shooting have remained closely connected to the confrontation involving Anderson. Knight and Shakur had confronted Anderson, and Anderson was beaten in an incident recorded by hotel security cameras. Detectives later said that Davis and his companions went searching for Shakur, allegedly because they wanted revenge over the earlier confrontation. Their search eventually led them to the Las Vegas night spot run by Knight. They waited there, but Knight and Shakur did not arrive. After leaving the location, the vehicle in which Davis was allegedly riding later came alongside Knight's red BMW. At that point, Shakur was hanging through the sunroof while fans followed the vehicle. The cars eventually reached the intersection of East Flamingo Road and Koval Lane, where the shooting took place. Knight was wounded, while Shakur was rushed to the hospital in grave condition. 6 days later, Shakur died. The death left a case that would remain without charges for decades. As time continued to pass, many observers believed the investigation might never lead to an arrest. But in September 2023, authorities arrested Davis, bringing a new and significant development to the long-running case. Davis, who had identified himself as a longtime Southside Crips leader from Compton, had later retired to the Las Vegas suburbs. He was charged with execution with the use of a deadly weapon with the intent to promote, further, or assist a criminal gang. He has remained in custody ever since. The case therefore moved from decades without charges to an arrest and an execution charge. The development placed Davis at the center of the legal proceedings surrounding Shakur's death, while questions about what happened before, during, and after the shooting continued to draw attention. Knight, meanwhile, has emphasized his concerns about accounts from people who were not present at the scene. His comments reflect his view that some versions of the events have been provided by people who were not in the car and did not witness what happened firsthand. Suge Knight refuses to testify in the Tupac Shakur trial. Suge Knight has made it clear that he does not want to testify in the trial connected to the 1996 killing of Tupac Shakur. From prison, Knight issued a strong warning against anyone who might try to force him to appear in court. His comments came as the case involving Tupac's death continued to move forward. Knight was with Tupac during the 1996 drive-by shooting, making him an important figure connected to the events surrounding the rapper's death. However, despite the possibility that he could be called to court, Knight has refused to testify. The trial is against Dwayne Davis, also known as Keffe D, who is charged in connection with Tupac Shakur's 1996 killing. As the trial moved forward, Knight spoke about his position during an interview with ABC News from prison. He made it clear that he believes the case has nothing to do with him and warned that forcing him into the courtroom could create problems for whoever tries to bring him there. Knight also said that he would not cooperate with law enforcement in connection with the case. He explained that solving homicides is not his responsibility and that he does not want to be involved in the legal process surrounding Tupac's killing. Knight also addressed the possibility of either side calling him to testify. He said that if Keffe D's lawyers brought him to court, it would not look good for Davis. At the same time, Knight said that if the prosecution brought him to court, it would not look good for the prosecution either. His position was simple. He wants to be left out of the trial. His refusal to testify is also connected to the loyalty he says he still has toward Tupac. Knight made it clear that his loyalty to Tupac cannot be compromised. He does not want to appear in court in a way that could hurt Tupac's memory or go against the loyalty he feels toward him. Knight went further when explaining why he would not want to identify or point someone out in court. He compared testifying against another person with an act that, in his view, could cause lasting harm. His point was that he does not want to take responsibility for helping send another person to prison for the rest of that person's life. For Knight, the issue is also connected to forgiveness. He said that if God is forgiving, he does not believe he should place himself above God by refusing to forgive someone. This belief plays an important part in his decision not to testify. Knight has therefore continued to maintain his position despite the possibility that he could be called to court. He has not changed his stance about cooperating with authorities or becoming involved in the trial. He also spoke about the lasting place Tupac holds in people's hearts. According to Knight, Tupac remains in everyone's heart. He added a personal detail about his younger son, saying that Tupac is his favorite rapper. This shows how Knight views Tupac's influence as something that continues even years after his death. The trial has therefore moved forward while Knight remains unwilling to take the witness stand. His comments from prison have made his position clear. He does not want to be forced into the case, does not want to cooperate with law enforcement, and does not want to point anyone out in court. For Knight, his connection to Tupac is about loyalty, forgiveness, and refusing to take part in something he believes could permanently affect another person's life. Even with the possibility of being called to court, he continues to say that he wants to be left out of the trial. What do you think about Tupac? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Before you go, be sure to click on the video shown on your screen.